Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is shoulder dystocia, and this is when you have a large for gestational age baby. So typically with those gestational diabetic babies, they are larger and their shoulders are the hardest part to get out. So what happens with shoulder dystocia is the infant's head is delivered, but that top shoulder is wedged behind the pubic symphysis. And this is an emergency. You can't predict it. It's unpreventable, and it's just caused by this mismatch between the pelvis and fetal shoulder. You have approximately 5 minutes of delay before the infant experiences hypoxemia and acidosis. And then once you approach that 6th minute and beyond, you can see possible brain damage and organ damage becomes permanent. So when you see shoulder dystocia during the pushing stages of labor, if you see that, then they will start a timer, and you need to get that baby out within 5 minutes. So let's talk about some of the things that you do for a shoulder dystocia. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's the entrapment of the anterior shoulder on that pubic symphysis. And what we see is what's called turtle sign. So it's this, you see the head kind of popping out during the pushing, like a turtle's head popping out of its shell, but it never actually moves anywhere because that shoulder is stuck, causing the dystocia of labor. So the nurse does a few things. So they do what's called the McRoberts maneuver. Number one, they will flex that leg, opening up the pelvis, and number two, they will apply pressure above that pubic symphysis to release that anterior shoulder and try to get that baby's shoulder out from underneath that pubic symphysis. And the providers does some certain things. They can either fracture the fetus's clavicle and allowing that anterior shoulder to pass. They can rotate the shoulder 180 degrees, kind of just to get it out from being locked in there. It's called the Woods corkscrew. Or they can try to deliver that posterior arm and kind of change the diameter of the shoulders. And then the last thing they'll do is called the Zavanelli maneuver, and that's just getting that fetal head back up into the sort of like pushing that pelvic head back up and then preparing for a cesarean delivery. So there is a video that I'm showing you. Sorry, my son's in here. It can cause that brachial plexus injury before you watch the video, where it's that stretching of the nerves of that brachial plexus that I talked about earlier. And then here is that video. So I posted the video. It's a reenactment or an enactment of shoulder dystocia and what kind of happens during shoulder dystocia. So you can pause this and click on that. So the next complication during labor is what's called uterine rupture. And this is when the uterine, you can see right here, tears, usually in some sort of scar area with a C-section scar. And what happens is the tissues rupture, and so you'll see massive amounts of bleeding. So you can see this in the VBAC of vaginal birth after cesarean, and this is one of the risks for trying to do a vaginal birth, is that uterine rupture. So fetal mortality is pretty high, and mothers survive, but sometimes have complications due to it. So it's caused by an overdistension of the uterus. So if there is twins, or if you see a large amount of amniotic fluid, it can be caused any other uterine scarring and from uterine trauma. So you will see immediately that contractions will stop, you'll see a non-reassuring fetal heart rate, and you'll see those signs and symptoms of hypovolemia. So you see this uterine scar, and then it ruptures, and you will see massive amounts of bleeding. The next one is amniotic fluid embolism. This is a rare condition. They are unable to predict it, but what happens is somehow fetal cells, the hair or the cottage cheese that is on babies enters the maternal vasculature, and you see the mom going into anaphylactic shock because she senses, her body senses that there is an attack going on. So most of the time it ends in cardiorespiratory collapse. It can occur anytime during pregnancy, labor, birth, or within 24 hours after. And you will see maternal death occurring within 1 hour of symptom occurrence. So here's kind of what happens when you see this going on. You see the activation of the inflammation. So it's kind of like a inflammatory or immune storm. You see DIC because they're trying to, clot everything. You see ARDS leading to hypoxemia, right heart failure, left heart failure, hypotension, leading all of these because they're not getting sufficiently perfusion to the brain, neurological injury. This is a very rare condition, thank goodness. And then the last thing we're going to talk about in this lecture in labor and delivery is fetal demise, and what we as nurses do when we see a stillbirth or when the baby is born not compatible with life. So we know that that baby is going to die a few hours after they're delivered. So mostly we're going to give emotional support, and a lot of times hospitals have a representative from Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep Photography come and take professional photographs of this baby. We also do a cast of the baby's either hands or feet. We can give them a blanket. It depends on the hospital. I've never seen a death currently at the hospital I work with, so I don't know exactly what they do there. But in the past, when I worked at Children's Hospital of New Mexico, we saw about 50 deaths a year there, so we were well versed on what to do when we saw a fetal or neonatal death. So we would make casts of the hands and feet, like I said. We would give them bracelets, and we would give them blankets, and we kind of gave them a memory box. And then we would have pictures taken of them and their babies. And this is a video which is made by the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep organization. It's a volunteer organization that professional photographers volunteer for, and they come and take these really great pictures of these babies so that these parents can remember them forever. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. They do black and whites because we don't want to see the color of the baby. And they can get really little babies shot and really capture those moments for these families that they'll have as priceless sort of memorability. And sometimes when they're not able to, take pictures of the face for different reasons, they can take pictures of the hands and the feet and really give them sort of a priceless gift. All right, this is the end of labor and delivery. I'm going to start postpartum, and we'll just continue right through, and hopefully these are helping you guys.